Rated PG, patnubay at gabay ng magulang ay kailangan sa mga batang manonood.
Good evening, you're watching the Chairman's Report. This program is brought to you by IBC 13 and the Commission on Filipinos Overseas, an agency under the Office of the President mandated to connect the Filipino diaspora with their home country. Dante, Klink II, chairperson of the CFO and your program host. CFO's mandate involves engaging with the Filipino diaspora politically, economically, and culturally. Part of that work is the promotion of Filipino literature, and recently, one genre that has gained notable global recognition is Filipino comics and graphic novels. Tonight's guest is the co-founder of Komiket, a much celebrated non-profit organization in the Philippines that advocates for Filipino comics and art markets. Mr. Paolo Herras served as the lead lecturer of the annual Comic Book Creators Workshop, a series of specialized training sessions designed to help aspiring writers and artists develop the skills needed to create, script, draw, and publish their own comics or graphic novels. Since 2019, he has served as the Festival Director of the Philippine International Comics Festival, or PICOF, which features hundreds of local creators aiming to expand the global readership of Philippine comics. As a writer himself, Paolo is the comics author of Strange Natives, a graphic novel series that explores themes of forgotten history, colonialism, and Philippine folklore through a mix of fantasy and adventure. Mr. Paolo Herras, welcome to the Chairman's Report.
Thank you, Klink, for having me, and it's good to see you again after so many months, no? And thank you for supporting our advocacy.
Well, Paolo, I'm excited to go through this, but maybe before we do so, let's give a bit of a background to those watching this. There was at the time a golden age of Philippine comics, and thanks to you and your colleagues, you are making a revival of sorts, or maybe have already made one. But tell us about maybe a little bit about the history of comics in the Philippines.
Okay, so I can give a little because I'm not really an expert of that.
What you grew up with, maybe, or what you're familiar with.
So, Filipino comics has a long and rich history. It's traced to our national hero, Jose Rizal. He did sequential art on the story of the monkey and the hare.
Yeah.
No, so, the monkey and the turtle.
Yeah. The race. Yeah.
Yeah. And after that, in 1929, there was Kenkoy, which is our first comic strip. And from there was a whole group of comics publishers, mostly newsprint publishers, that were publishing Filipino comics almost every week, twice a week. I heard from Randy Valiente, the comics historian, the creator, that it's like a print run of a million. So I can't even imagine that. But even comics historians and scholars from Southeast Asia has been saying that some of our comics, especially of Nestor Redondo, was reaching Thailand and the other countries. So we were very famous for our illustrations.
Yes.
And that's why a comics editor or comics editors from DC Comics from the US flew in, looked at the talent, and suddenly offered jobs to several comics illustrators or comics masters.
Right.
So they did really well in the US. So they immigrated to the US, and they became famous worldwide. While locally, as new forms of entertainment was slowly killing the comics industry until we stopped having these newsprints. And then in the 90s, through the intervention of Will Spertasio, also from the film creator from the US, who is the creator of Bishop of X-Men.
Okay.
So he came to the Philippines and met with the comics creators here and told them to group themselves together because they would make a bigger impact. And that was the rise of the Alamat Comics group. So that's where Budget Tan, Arnold Are, Jerry Alangilan, Carlo Vergara started. And they started to create original stories. And that inspired the whole new generation 30 years later. And to what we have today.
Yeah, well, as you know, before government, I used to be in the newspaper publishing business, and a lot of people will tell me that they started reading newspapers because of the comics page, right? And it was a bit of a humbling experience, because you of course thought about the more the stories with more gravitas, but they're really drawn to the comics. But sadly, I guess it disappeared, maybe because I don't know. People were reading newspapers less, and as you said, there were other forms of entertainment. But our creatives found work working for foreign brands, foreign comic publishers. I think of DC and Marvel and things like that. And now there are these. So how did you get started? Were you always drawing? Did you always thought about doing comics, or were you thinking of writing novels when you're younger, or how did you end up doing this?
Well, Klink, I started reading comics as a child because my aunts had a collection of Asterix and Obelix and Tintin in the house. So I grew up reading these comics, Archie, and then I come from a family of artists.
Right.
My grandfather was a photojournalist of Time Life magazine when it still had an office here during the American period, and my aunts, two of my aunts were the first scholars at the Philippine ISO for the Arts. So that's batch 81 and 83. And I followed suit as a creative writing major. So my background, my love for books started at home when I was very young, and then I became a scholar at Philippine ISO for the Arts, where I studied fiction, and then I pursued writing. I attended the UP National Writers Workshop at third year high school. I was 16. Then the Ricky Lee script writing workshop. So I got into film. So that's how I bridged.
Yeah, I forget you're much younger than I am. Because my recollection of the golden age was Darna, Montezuma. Those are the things. But are those stories still alive somewhere, or there's so much available now, right? I mean, does that still have a place in the creative field, or there are more interesting characters now?
Definitely, Darna will still be the iconic comics for the Philippines, but it wasn't readily available. I think there was a reprint in 2003. But the distribution was very different back then.
Yes.
Before, the comics would be available in every corner store. It sold very cheap. It had a nickname for being yung pambalot ng tinapa, or the wrapper for dried fish. It was
which
that
also
popular.
applied for newspapers.
Yeah, that's true. And also people were going on caritons and renting comics. I mean, it sounds very cinematic. No? And it's very far from where when I grew up, it was all of these foreign entertainment, foreign films, foreign video games, and all that. So it wasn't, the only access to comics was in the newspapers.
Sure.
So,
but when that disappeared, right? I mean, as you said, the creatives found work for international publishers, and many people may have thought that it didn't exist anymore, but they were just working under different company banners. Well, what kicked it off? Is it technology, or has it always been there, but now it's getting more attention?
It's always been there, because in 2000...
So it never really disappeared.
It didn't disappear.
Yeah.
So after the Alamat creators created independent comics, and they would launch it in comic book stores like Comic Quest or Comic Odyssey. And there was also a manga magazine, Filipino manga magazine, like Culture Crash. There's also Questor. But when those also stopped, there was a group who put up an event called Comic-Con with a K. And they've been doing it since 2005. And for the past 20 years, they became the home for comics creators like me.
I see.
I started there. It's mostly Filipino comics. You would print them on your office printer or a photocopying shop.
Okay.
So I would go to UP Shopping Center to print and Xerox my comics, and they'd be stapled. Then they had their events thrice a year, so it became the release dates for independent creators. And then there were a couple of publishers that started to publish comics. So Visprint, who was publishing Bob Ong, started to publish Manic Sabrera and Carlo Vergara of Shasha and Trece. And then there was also Anino Comics, which was the comics arm of Adarna. So in 2015, they started to also publish more authors. At that time, Komiket started in 2015 as well.
Okay.
And our job was to grow the community, grow the readership of comics, discover new creators, and where will we find new readers? Because the Comic-Con as the home would already have their own base of readers, loyal readers that love the work, and fellow comics creators that find people who love the same thing. So Komiket wanted to grow that, and where will you find new readers but from fellow creatives? That's why Komiket is a ket, or an art market, because it's the fellow creatives who appreciate art and literature will be the next to consider reading the work. Comics is also unique because it is both literary arts and visual arts. So we get to straddle both events in terms of literary events like MIBF and Philippine Book Festival, and art events like Art in the Park. So we're there. So that's also how we've survived.
Yeah.
It's just that we have more doors open.
Congratulations. We'll just have to take a quick break. You're watching the Chairman's Report. Please stay with us.
Doc, true ba?
May health question ka ba na gustong masagot?
True ba na nakakahawa through close contact ang lupus?
Doc, true po ba na kapag nag-swimming ay mas at risk magkaroon ng ear infection?
Samahan sila Doc Sel Martinez at Jerome Sang na masagot ang inyong mga katanungang pangkalusugan sa Doc, True ba? Tuwing Sabado alas 8 ng umaga.
Welcome back to the Chairman's Report. I'm Dante, Klink. I'm talking to Sir Paolo Herras. Paolo, are we now seeing the beginnings, or are we at the new golden age of Philippine comics? But it seems like you have these, these samples here, which are not the entirety of the available works in the market, but some of the ones that you thankfully brought with you to show with us. Where are we at now, and then what do you have here?
It would be too proud of me to say that it's a new golden age. I mean, only time can tell.
Sure.
But there's a new wave. I would say that's a new wave.
And congratulations for that. I mean, things are paying off. Yeah.
Yeah. All of the hard work. No?
Yeah.
But before the first golden age was you have master illustrators.
Yeah.
we actually lost that. We had an art style.
Okay.
We had the Filipino art style.
Yes.
Like Alfredo Alcala was in an interview of the comics editor from and J. Ignacio's documentary on Comics to the K was mentioning that Alfredo Alcala was who was plucked from the Philippines and moved to the US to work on different Marvel titles, asked how many pages can you do in a day? And Alfredo Alcala answered 40. And the editor was shocked. He said, there must be some mistranslation here. And he showed the artwork. How many pages of this can you do in a week? And he said, oh, not 40, I can do 80.
Wow.
So what I heard from Jay when he was also sharing stories is that when there are problems with a certain issue and last minute that they need to print, they would contact the Filipino illustrators to save that issue so that by the weekend
so they
have
can make their deadline. So what he brought here to show us?
So now it's a new wave, but this time our comics creators are more storytellers. So they usually illustrate the stories that they want to tell.
Yeah.
So I'll start with this one because this one is one of the first books that we published, and it's ang mga alitap-tap ng pulang buhangin, written and illustrated by R.H. Calentang.
Yeah.
So it won both the National Book Award and National Children's Book Award, which is very rare. So this one took 5 years of RH's life to finish the book, which he dedicated to his daughter, which started with the question, where do butterflies come from? So also we have Alandal, which also dalawa sila that won the National Book Award and National Children's Book Award.
I think I have a copy of this. Yeah.
On the same year, but this was for English and this one was for Filipino. So Jay is a documentary filmmaker. He was part of the band The Police. Okay. If you remember that band in the 90s and early 2000s. No? So he did research.
To admit, but I do remember.
Yeah. So he was doing a documentary on The Bladed Hand. Sure. Which is on Ernest. Okay. And he came across Alex Nino and asked Alex Nino, who is currently our last living comics master. He's around 84, 85 years old. And if he'd like to do a graphic novel, and this was the last one he went out.
What's the story about?
This one follows Jay's research. He went to Sulu and the region.
So Eskrima.
Yes. So there is that Eskrima Idaga.
Because the Philippine martial arts is actually gaining interest from not just Filipinos abroad, but also to foreigners.
So it's set in the 1700s, where a Spanish conquistador's daughter, who's mixed race, half Filipina, half Spanish, gets kidnapped by Iranon pirates. Yeah. And there, she discovers that she's the granddaughter of the Sultan of Sulu.
Wow. Can I interrupt you? Because, my job now at CFO is to connect the Filipinos abroad to the Philippines. And I noticed this one, which seems to be written in Italian. And I was just thinking that what your thoughts are of maybe comics being a way for the Filipinos abroad, maybe in this case for the Filipinos who grew up or were born in Italy, to reconnect with the Philippines through comics. Is that something that's maybe worth thinking about, or maybe then tell us about this one.
This one is actually the Italian edition
version of that one.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful comics publisher in Italy, and they're called Toshokan. Okay. And manga has been Japanese manga has been overtaking the world. Right. So there is a demand for Asian stories. Okay. So manga for us here in the Philippines means Japanese comics. In Japan, manga means comics. But when the Europeans talk about manga, they usually also refer it to anyone in Asia. Right. So it actually became a doorway to the Philippines because they were thinking of, I've never seen any comics from the Philippines. Maybe we should try. So they read the book. usually when they like the book, they will make an offer to translate it in their
I see.
language.
And what's the story behind this? No, you should,
So-
Dapulang Buhangin na.
So this, the story of this is Stella Mandaluyong, who
Okay.
is who promises her father that she wants to follow the footsteps of her dead mother,
Okay.
who passed away protecting the last forest in the world.
Wow.
So it's set in the future, wherein our barangays live in spaceships, and
Okay. Futuristic. Okay.
and she trains as a tanod to protect the last last forest. So that's it's a finished story,
Yeah.
and it's around almost 500 pages long.
Wow.
That's why, but it's still easy to read.
Right. I'm sorry to interrupt, but no, because this is in Italian, does that mean an Italian publisher bought it, or did you had it translated and you're selling it to the Italian market? Or because I know that a lot of your colleagues were also at the Frankfurt Book Fair for the past several years, but very prominently in the last few.
Yes. So I have been representing the Philippines in international book fairs
Yes.
like Frankfurt. I've been. I was sent to
Angoulême,
London and Angoulême.
Yeah.
So Angoulême is like a mecca for comics.
Right.
So all of the comics publishers who are seriously into comics go there once a year in January. And there was one time that the National Book Development Board supported the Philippine booth in Angoulême, and I was tasked to manage that booth. And it performed as of course it's not a competition, but
Yeah.
we performed the best in that rights market. That by the end of at the end of the year, that year we sold around 60 to 70
titles?
rights.
Wow.
So
congratulations.
of course it's thank you. It's a mix of it's not a quick sale.
Sure.
So you really have to get to know.
It's just like any other business transaction.
You really need to get to know the other publisher, what kind of books they like to publish, and see if there's a match. If there's none this year, then maybe next year, and just try to help them do better business.
Yeah.
So it just so happens that when they try one book,
Yeah.
and it sells well, then they ask for another
Yeah,
and
at least another deal. Yeah. That's fantastic. So again, what I find so interesting is that we had our own comics with our own stories, and then for a while we were doing the stories of other countries, like through Marvel, DC, and others that I'm sure you're more familiar with it. But now, what I find so interesting is our stories now are being told in a different way. But as you said, the anod, the eskrima, and people are interested in, or they're reading it, and more importantly, they're buying it.
Yeah. Well, we just started doing it because that happened in 2024.
Okay.
And last year, the Philippines was a guest of honor at the Frankfurt Book Fair.
Yeah.
And the the literary genre with the most number of translations is comics and graphic novels. So it just comes to show that we really valued the opportunity.
Sure.
We really took it seriously. We also saw that, when you talk about Philippine, you won't think Philippine comics.
Sure.
It won't. So I knew back
Yeah,
then.
it's not top of mind, right?
I knew back then, and and it's understandable. There's so many poets, novelists.
Sure.
I'm a Philippine lit major,
Yeah.
so there's so many people that deserve to represent the Philippines. So back then in 2021, I knew that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
I just didn't know when.
Yeah.
So I knew that if comics is going to participate, it has to earn its space.
Sure.
And it has to earn its place. So the only way that we could earn our place was to make sure we sold rights. And we were lucky that there was one German publisher that was interested in Alandal first.
Mm-hmm.
And
So this has been
after
translated into German.
and Burmese
Burmese.
in Myanmar.
In
Yeah.
Myanmar, wow.
So, and then after Alandal, there was Strange Natives, Deaf
Yeah.
Be Damned, Depicto,
Yeah.
and then Trece also. And that one book became 16, 18, 20 books, 18 maybe 18 books by 2025.
Yeah. Well, Paolo, I want you to talk about more of these things, but before that, let's take a quick break. You're watching Chairman's Report. I'm with Paolo Herras. We'll be right back.
Bagong Pilipinas. Mahalaga ang kapakanan ng bawat isa. Lahat ng aspeto ng lipunan pinagtutuunan ng pansin ng pamahalaan at ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. Bagong Pilipinas, PBBM, Lingkod ng Bayan. Tuwing Linggo, alas 8:30 ng umaga.
Obra mula sa basura? Pwede yan, basta't kasama mo ang buong Artkada. Kaya Artlinks, game na ba kayo? Ilabas na ang inyong art materials at unleash your creative minds. Let's turn trash into treasures sa mga super fun at colorful activities. Don't worry, si Kuya Kel ang bahala sa inyo. Kalye, sining, tuwing Sabado, 4 p.m.
Welcome back to the Chairman's Report. I'm Dante, Klink. I'm talking to Paolo Herras. Paolo, I picked a few from the pile. I thought this was pretty interesting. Tell us about this because it originated from Sawala, Nothing to Lose, but I see now a translation in German, and you said this is Czech, right? And this is Spanish or Portuguese?
Spanish, yeah.
Spanish. So I think this is a wonderful example of many that you brought here that has found success in many foreign markets. Can you give us an introduction to this work, this author, and then the story?
So, this is Sawala by Ren Galeno, and Ren is one of our 3 decorated Filipinas for who has received the National Book Award for graphic novels. So that's Emiliana Campilan of Dead Balagtas, and recently the winner was Lucia Azul. Right. For Lucia Dreaming. So there are just 3 Komikeras who received the award.
Wow.
And Sawala is her first graphic novel.
Are there other translations of this work in other languages other than the ones that we...
There is a Brazilian edition, and there's a Burmese edition. So this is actually our most translated book. It has 8 editions. So I think it has more editions than Nolly and Philly.
What's the story about again?
It's about a taxi driver who discovers a rooster on the road.
Wow.
And that brings it home thinking that his luck changes because he's battling poverty. He has death in the hospital.
I see.
When his mother died.
Yeah.
So he joins the sabong.
Right.
He joins and discovers that the rooster has extraordinary strength and decimates the competition. But what he doesn't know is that the rooster also has a thirst for blood and starts to attack other animals, other humans until...
I noticed that seems to be a very popular theme among the comics or graphic novel works that are successful outside, particularly. You mentioned Trece has, not about roosters, but how mythical creatures of the Philippines and adapted to modern storylines, right? They seem to be attracting attention as well. Now it's a Netflix series as well, right?
But the supernatural and mythology is something that is our strongest door opener. Yeah. That would open the gates for a lot of our stories.
And you're thinking about, opening doors for Filipinos here, but I'm thinking, from my perspective, opening doors from the Filipinos abroad to the Philippines through a language that they're familiar with, but reading Philippine stories.
And seeing Filipino images.
No, I was thinking, what sells? Is it the story that sells? Is it the quality of the illustration that sells? Or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both, but because the art will grab you.
I see.
It opens
it attracts you.
It has to really be. I mean, the art was the initial
Right.
pass or fail.
Right.
I mean, it's that easy to
Right.
to check. So it just matters to the publisher if it looks like the books that they sell.
I see.
Or if it looks different, it matches with the same readership
I
they
see.
have for their books. But it's the story that really has to rise above. Because
see.
if you're in a book fair like the Frankfurt Book Fair, wherein you're surrounded and drowning in a sea of books, how do you rise above?
Right.
How do you float?
Right.
So
That's interesting.
a lot of, especially that when I said earlier that we lost our Filipino art style.
Yeah.
So the Philippines, especially creators today, are influenced by both East and West.
Right.
So there's an influence from manga, Nick Jr., Cartoon Network, and manga, manhwa. But the artists try to tweak it to
Right.
make it their own.
Is there a distinct Philippine style that is emerging or that's established, or is it still evolving? Yeah.
If you look at it, it's really more on the artistic voice. I would say
Of the
that
individual.
of the individual, that this looks like the artist's artwork. It's very distinct.
I see. Now, this drew my attention because, in the news today, of course, is the Middle East. Now, this particular story is in Farsi or Persian, right? Tell us about this one. It's what's this about?
Okay, so this one is actually our first published book.
Oh.
It's Doobie-Doo Asks. It's
Okay.
an official selection of the Philippine International Comics Festival.
Okay.
Which we, it was one of our special projects. No, the Philippine International Comics Festival is supposed to be like a Cinemalaya for comics.
I see.
So we saw how Cinemalaya elevated Philippine cinema, especially independent Philippine cinema, that the films that were part of Cinemalaya would get to participate in international films abroad, which would pick the interest of local viewership. And that's how digital cinema started to grow. And we want to have a ripple effect for comics that way. So that's why the Philippine International Comics Festival is the only comics festival with an official selection of 10 graphic novel pitches that we develop in a creator's lab. And when it's ready for publishing, we publish it. So this is the first.
And what's the story about?
It's an autobiographical story of Bambi and Roland Amago. They're a husband and wife tandem,
Okay.
writer, illustrator. And it talks about when they discovered their firstborn child to be on the autism spectrum.
I see.
And the challenges they faced on how to provide a happier
that
life
is
for
so
their child.
interesting.
So
Now, why do you think it appealed to Persian readers?
because in this case, the readership in Persian, especially publishing, is more towards kids. So out of the stories, also there is a limitation to, or a censorship to, what can be published in the Middle East.
I see.
So it ticks all of the boxes in
Right.
terms of the stories,
Right.
and they wanted to also tell a Filipino story that their readers would be able to appreciate and learn from.
Now, are these works, are they available from where? I mean, if people see this and they're in the Middle East, or if they're in Europe, how do they get their hands on these? Well, I take it that because you sold the rights, or the creator sold rights, that the rights buyers take care of the distribution. Is that
Yes.
correct, in their market?
Yes, they're in charge of the marketing, distribution, and
Yeah.
promotions of the books.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to find the connection,
Yeah.
but they should be promoting it in their countries.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would say it's a Filipino book that
Sure.
was translated in their own language. But for us, if they follow our page, so
You're talking about the Facebook page?
the Facebook page, the Komiket, for books, the Komiket Bookshop.
Yeah.
For our events, it's the Komiket Facebook page, and for our festival, the Philippine International
Pick-off, right.
Comics Festival, Pick-off. It's mostly through social media because it's the easiest to reach
Right,
out
right.
to.
And
So he was batch 4 of our comic book creators workshop.
Okay.
So, and what's interesting with CJ is that he's deaf.
oh,
And he attended the workshop because he wanted to create comics. and he started doing comic strips like What You're Saying, and he wanted to advocate for Filipino Sign Language.
I see.
So this
That
is
is
a
so
strips
interesting.
form that teaches Filipino Sign
Oh,
Language.
that is so interesting.
Yeah. So after
I
that,
think we need this at CFO. Because
after that, because of Pickoff, he also pitched a story of Nino Bughao. So this one also plays with the Encantos, or with the gods of the Ilocos.
Okay.
And then he was born with the ability to change the weather.
I see.
So when he's happy, it's sunny. When he's sad, it's gloomy.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but he's deaf also.
Right.
And the townspeople around him think that because he's deaf, he's cursed. And there's an evil Encanto, si Sigwawa, who steals the hearing of the townspeople, and the townspeople get angry and think it's the boy that they got infected by the boy.
Oh.
So what he does is he has to defeat the evil Encanto to return the hearing to the town.
That's interesting.
So it's also translated in Dutch in the Netherlands,
So there you go.
and hopefully in one more country, but we'll see.
So the diaspora and the Dutch-speaking in the diaspora would be very interested in that.
And it's interesting because this one, the sign language, had to be redrawn for the Dutch sign language. But the other one from another country wants it to be Filipino.
I see. I have a couple of minutes before we go on break, but
Okay.
let's end this segment with your work. What's this about?
Okay, so Strange Natives is about 8 strange natives who are trapped or who live in this forgotten town that's trapped in time. It's frozen in time. And some of these strange natives are the old gods, the pagan gods that have survived modernity. So the reason why they are hiding is because the series talks about each individual character. So there are 8 strange natives and their stories, and it will culminate in an omnibus story wherein they are revealed to be present in society, and that they are attacked by the new colonizers, or the dark natives.
Interesting. Well, I have to go on break, as I said. We'll be right back with the chairman's report. I'm talking to Paolo Herras. Stay with us.
Get ready for the most dazzling, full of energy, at super-duper captivating kids sa programang Ang Bida ay hindi lang cuteness, kundi talent din. Talents Academy, every Saturday at 4:30 p.m.
Welcome back to the Chairman's Report. I'm Dante. Klink. I'm talking to Paolo Herras. Paolo, congratulations again. Lots of interesting works here, but as I said, this is just a sample. These are just samples of what's available. I'm just curious, where would you say we are now? Because you said you wouldn't characterize it as the new golden age, time will tell. But where would you say we are now? Obviously, there's already a lot of works being produced. What else can government do to maybe encourage more? Because, in my mind, the more you produce, the more returns the country earns, right, from this works, right?
Well, a lot. But
Where do you begin?
But
Okay,
I guess what's not mentioned, I mean, we were mentioning that it's a lot of hard work, but it's a lot of hard work in a very risky environment.
Sure.
So we are a nonprofit that doesn't receive any subsidies.
Yeah.
So we have to earn every single centavo to fund our projects.
Right.
So if something happens to us, nobody will follow suit and take care of the work. So for me, my wish fulfillment is that we have our own space, that we don't have to pay for rent, our operation expenses. Because
what did you say, Komiket? Or is there like you're talking about the industry in general?
Well, for me, because not everybody wants to do the work that I do.
Sure.
It's very rare to find people that want to help an entire community.
Sure.
So I'm sure there are others in different fields, but for cultural and both cultural and creative industry workers that have a track record of doing good work, I hope that we would be subsidized, even if it's just having a rent-free space so that we could do our work.
Or do you get any tax breaks?
There is a limit to our tax break. So once it exceeds the threshold, we still, but there is still a little tax break. So that's also appreciated. I would also wish that there was a long-term development plan, because right now everything is just short-term thinking.
Yeah, sure.
It's like seminars or awards or workshops, but there is no follow-through to the end. That's my wish, because we're able to inspire up to a certain point.
Sure.
If the creators cannot, or the artists do not earn back or see a return, it just becomes like independent film, a very expensive hobby.
Yeah.
So you only get harvests of whoever's willing to give 2 to 5 years of their lives to create the work.
Sure.
So,
but do you think we'll see more adaptations? I mean, I know Trece is one good example of that, but we were talking earlier about Darna, right? I mean, do you think that we will see maybe a revival or maybe even an improvement of what we saw in the past? I mean, what needs to happen?
What needs to happen is film producers who also have their own problems, and it's a lot of big problems, but if they want more adaptations, because the tendency of any creative is that, okay, I can do it myself, right? But if different creative industries would want to collaborate, then there has to be a mutually beneficial terms, because here in the Philippines, filmmakers don't earn their films. So if, let's say, if a book gets offered to be adapted, they'll just pay a one-time fee.
I see.
It's not royalty-based. So
what about the rights that you sold? Is that a one-time fee also?
It's royalty-based. Yeah. So like a regular publishing contract, there is an advance and a percentage per book, which has to be taxed whenever you receive. Yeah. So it's not really, it might sound impressive that, we're published in so many countries, but it's actually just, we're talking about royalties, which isn't that huge.
Yes.
That's why even if we're, I think, one of the most licensed, if we're not maybe we're one of the, it will really entail a long-term plan, and on various aspects, like an improvement in distribution, improvement of, like, we're bound by paper. So if we don't, and all of our paper here is imported. So if we don't produce our own paper, it gets to be expensive and harder to compete with the New York bestsellers, with all of the US editions that we have in our bookstores.
Before we start taping, we were talking about possibly selling to, or your work, the work that you're doing to sell to DepEd, and which is an important institutional buyer, right? And I was saying a while ago that people get into reading because of comic strips and newspapers before, and I'm seeing how maybe we talk about how there's a reading problem in the Philippines, or how maybe comics can play a role to address that issue. Tell us about the challenges there to sell your works to institutional buyers like DepEd. My dream is that you sell also to the DepEd counterparts abroad, right? With your translated works.
So as we were working over the years, so we started organizing events to provide spaces for our creators. Then we taught workshops to discover new creators. Then we put up our own bookstore because the comics is not found in bookstores. As we were trying to provide solutions that we could give to solve the different problems of the creators, or to our community of creators, we realized that there has to be much more work to be done.
Sure.
And part of that, as we continue to sell books in our own events, we're available in Fully Booked. We are available in Shopee, Lazada. So we have readers from as far up north as Lawag and down south as Tawi-Tawi who has bought at least one book. We work with NBDB in the PBF for DepEd. We sell our books in MIBF, but it's still not enough. No, so the international rights selling also helps validate that because we know our books are good. We know, but of course, even if we say it, even if the books win National Book Awards, National Children's Book Awards, we're still not being purchased by DepEd. So I'm very happy that slowly in the past 2 years is that now that we have more reasons for DepEd and local readers to believe in comics, they're starting to slowly consider it, because because first there was no comics to sell to DepEd before, and even if there is data that shows that we are the books kids want to read, we are visual language is the one that's most receptive to learning.
Right.
So it's just that there was usually no comic books before, and now that we do have it, and through the Philippine Book Festival, we're able to meet some of the DepEd scopers, but still, it would be a dream to have our books in all city libraries and school libraries available, just to get kids starting to read and start just wanting to read it because they love to read it. And then when they have the habit of reading, it grows further into other forms of literature and other forms of studies.
Are you able to maybe train a younger generation? I mean, are you seeing kids, because these works are now available and others are available, do you see now that it's inspiring the next generation of probably illustrators and comics writers? Is that something that you're seeing an interest in, a younger set, or is it more the young adults, the teens who are drawn to this type of works?
So there are two answers. One, there is a group, also another comics publisher called Quentoon, who focuses on comics for kids.
Okay.
So the Patty Ramos we published, she also teaches art for kids.
Oh.
So this is her first graphic novel.
Okay.
So she's also known as Teacher Patty in our comics magazine, Komiket Comics. So there is a program wherein she teaches how to create comics for kids. The next is we have a lot of colleges and universities and even senior high schools that start to teach sequential art.
Sequential art. What's sequential art?
Or comics as
okay.
sequential art. So
Sorry.
it's okay.
I
So
wasn't tracking
it's because they have the skills, digital illustration skills, they can post it immediately on Facebook, social media, Instagram, and they instantly get the feedback, because it's made available. There's also webtoons wherein you can post your comics online. There's a whole different set of creators who are also available online who don't go to print. So there are different groups. So the future of comics is a mix of it will still be independent.
Sure.
Because even as we publish these titles, we maintain the independent spirit. and that's also
And I think that's the appeal, right? That's the appeal.
it's the appeal.
Yeah.
So we maintain the independent spirit. We give feedback. It's our job for the creators to trust us to give the feedback, and they are able to see if the feedback is helps build or does it destroy the work.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful to the authors also that trusted us to publish them and who listened to the feedback, because we were able to get this far.
Paolo, I mean, as I had predicted, the challenge should be just to ask all the questions I have in mind in an hour. But I'm really thankful for the time you gave us, and thank you for showing us all of these things. If you don't mind, maybe we can invite you sometime in the future and have a part 2 of this,
Sure.
interview. But for now, to wrap things up, maybe you'd like to give a message to our viewers?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me here and having the books here. You were also one of the first supporters of Filipino comics. It's NBDB and actually FDCP who were the first ones who believed in Filipino comics. So thank you also for that. Chair Klink, who was the chair of NBDB for a while before where you are now. So I'll do the invitation. Okay, hello everyone. I'd like to invite you all to attend the Philippine International Comics Festival on July 10 to 12 at Ayala Malls, the 30th, Pasig City. It's open 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you're interested in Filipino comics, you can find us on Facebook. We have Komiket Bookshop or the Philippine International Comics Festival. You can just message us there, or you can contact me at komiket@gmail.com.
Paolo, thank you once again. So, in my new portfolio at the CFO, I think one of my challenges now, things to do, is to put the Philippine comics in the hands of our Filipino diaspora. So whether they're speaking German, Italian, my goodness, Farsi, we have something for you. Thank you. And thank you also to IBC 13 for making this program possible. This has been your Chairman's Report. I'm Dante Klink. I'll see you next week.